So this morning, what you can expect is we have about 2 hours, and we will be sitting here, but we will have a lot of integration. This is a Menti presentation. Some of you have probably been in Menti before, so in a couple of slides or next slide, you will be able to log in and use your mobile phone or desktop to actually write things or answer things directly here on the screen. And it's anonymous, so what you write, I cannot see who wrote it, and no one else either. It's good to know, but please be respectful. It's not okay. I want beer. That's not today's session. And also we will have a pause during this session as well. So just, yeah. So this is a session of strategic self-leadership. So in times of rapid change and constant demands, leading a cinema really starts with leading your oneself. So this morning we will explore how aligning purpose, priorities, and performance can make your work and our lives more sustainable and focused. So I lead both an organization and people, but I've realized, probably like most of you, probably the hard way, that the hardest person to lead is myself. So balancing strategy, people, data, creativity is one thing, but staying grounded, focused, and intentional in the middle of constant change is something else entirely. And I want to say this right from the start, that this session isn't about whether you have a leadership title or not. We are all leaders of ourselves, of our work, and of our lives. And self-leadership is, from my point of view, where it all begins. It's about taking ownership, setting direction, and leading from within, no matter your job role or title. So a few years ago, like 8 years ago, I was leading one of the biggest projects in my career, building this website, bio.se, a national digital platform for independent cinemas in Sweden. It was ambitious, exciting, and kind of hopeless. No one succeeded before. And expectations were high from the cinema industry in Sweden, and I pushed myself hard. Then my body began to react. I started to experience pain. At first I ignored it, convinced that I could just push through. But the pain grew worse until it became almost unbearable. And eventually I was diagnosed with a chronic inflammation called rheumatism, something that affects the joints and movement in the whole body. That actually helped me to change how I work and how I live. So it forced me to ask different questions. How do I take care of my body and my energy, not just my to-do list? What kind of habit and food actually supports my health? And how do I build a sustainable rhythm, not just a successful project? So it taught me that self-leadership isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters in a way that allows you to stay well and keep contributing. Since then, I have become very intentional about how I prioritize, how I eat, how I rest, and how I build my days, week, and months, not around urgency, but around what gives energy back. And I also want to be clear, this morning is not about telling you what to do or giving you a list of rules. It's not about do this or don't do that. Each of us has our own path, our own rhythm, our own way of leading and living. But my hope is that this session gives you insights, ideas, and a few practical tools. But more than that, that it helps you to reflect and feel what truly resonates within you. And maybe everything that we will discuss will feel relevant, maybe just a small part will, and that's perfectly fine. But what I have noticed, both in your questionnaire responses and during the presentations yesterday, and not at least leading training and programs with Swedish exhibitors for many years, is that many of us share the same need to pause, to reflect on how we spend our time and energy, and to reconnect with what truly matters in our work, our families, and friendships. So I simply invite you to stay open. Let yourself be moved or challenged by what comes up, by the questions that bring life and meaning back into focus. I would like to start with a short reflection just for yourself. So look at these questions and notice what comes up. What does life actually look like for you right now? Where does most of your energy go? Is it in work, in home, or somewhere in between? What feels meaningful and what drains you? And when did you last feel fully present, really there in your work or in your daily life? So let's start with a couple of minutes just to think and write for yourself, and don't overthink it, because whatever shows up first is often what matters most. So please, you can write on your computer, mobile phone, or on your notes. So I'll give you 4 minutes. So keep your notes. You won't need to share them, but you may want to come back later during this morning. So let's zoom out for a moment and look at what's happening around us. Because even though each of us has a different context, many of the challenges we face are actually shared. So what you will see on the next slide is a short summary of what you mentioned in your pre-lab questionnaires, the main challenges that came up across all your answers. And we're all navigating similar realities right now, rebuilding audiences, working with small teams and limited resources, learning to use digital tools wisely. We'll come back to that tomorrow. Striving for inclusion, coming back to that later also, and trying to stay balanced while doing it all. So let's see which of these challenges feel most true for you at the moment. So you can now pick up your phone and either go to menti.com and fill in the code or use the QR code. And choose the ones that best reflect your situation. You can pick more than one. And maybe it's just one or several. And there is no right or wrong here. It's simply a snapshot of what you're living through right now. You can choose more than one, yeah. So, thank you. It feels like you are at the right session. I'm happy. Or not. Well, it's fascinating to see, of course. So these are your realities, and you can already see how they connect. I would say most of it come back to how we lead ourselves and our organizations, about limited resources and small teams, balancing work, energy, and motivation. So after this is exactly why self-leadership matters. Because no matter which challenge we face, the way we show up, prioritize, and use our energy will make all the difference. And we cannot really control the speed of all this change, but we can actually control how we respond to it. So that is what self-leadership is really about, finding that inner steering, that sense of clarity and focus, even when everything around us keeps moving. So, and it really matters and starts with your values. So because your values shape your vision, and your vision shapes how you spend your time and energy. And one of the best tools I've come across for exploring this is the Martini Values Determination. It's a test, it's free, it takes about 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes. We will not do it now, but I urge you to give yourself that time, maybe on your way back home. It's simple but powerful, helping you to see what actually drives you right now, not what you think should drive you. And I come back to this every other year because your life changes. Depending of your situation in life, maybe family, new job, or sickness, maybe. And why should we do this? Well, it's important because your daily actions and your deeper values are aligned. And when they are, leadership becomes lighter. Things start to flow. You make clearer decisions. It's easier to say no, to prioritize and to stay balanced. So some of you may already know this book. Anyone read it? One, two, yeah, a couple. So this is the Swedish version. I'm sure you will find it in your language, and also you can listen to it on most audio books sites. So the 7 habits of highly effective people will go through this session. It's often described as one of the most influential leadership books ever written, almost a Bible for self-management. First published back in 1989, it sold more than 40 million copies and have been translated into dozens of languages. And what makes it timeless is that Cowie doesn't talk about quick hacks or productivity tricks. He talks about principle-centered leadership, leading from character and values, not from ego or urgency. And the first 3 habits are all about self-leadership. Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, and put first things first. And the next 3 are about collaboration and relationships. Think win-win. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, and synergize. And the last one, sharpen the saw, is about renewal and continuous growth. Actually, what you are choosing right now. You are attending this lab to learn more and to broaden your experience and knowledge. And Cowie's whole idea is that before we can lead others, we have to learn to lead ourselves, to act based on what is important, not just what is pressing. So this is where we'll go next, into one of his most powerful tools for focus and balance. So this is the time management matrix. It is simple, but once you really get it, it changes how you think about your day. So across the top you have urgent and not urgent. On the side, important and not important. So quadrant 1, top left, is where most of us lives. The urgent and the important things, crisis, deadlines, problems, they have to be done. Quadrant 3, lower left, is tricky. It feels urgent, but it is not really important. Interruptions, constant messages, meetings that drain energy. And quadrant 4, well, that's maybe the comfort zone, the endless scrolling, distractions, busy work. But the real leadership starts in quadrant 2. The important, but not urgent. So this is the zone of reflection, planning, relationships, development, strategy, the things that move us forward but rarely scream for attention. And self-leadership is about protecting time for this quadrant. Because when you spend more time here, you will reduce the crisis in quadrant 1 and you create more space for what matters most. So here's a quick check-in using Cowie's 4 quadrants. So for you, think about the last few weeks. Where does most of your time and energy actually go? So you can choose up to 2 areas. So is it urgent and important crisis? Important but not urgent, quadrant 2. Planning, learning, reflection. Urgent but not important. Interruptions, constant messages. And there are no right or wrong, but be honest. And you can choose up to 2. So it's myself, I'm a lot of the time in quadrant 1. It's understandable. It's kind of fun to get all the emails and answer them directly and all the notifications and so it's human. And the challenge is that quadrant 2 is not shouting for attention. We have to choose it. And self-leadership is really about creating more time here in quadrant 2, the proactive zone, so that fewer things actually turn out to crisis. So maybe the question is not how do I get more time? It is how do I spend more time on what actually matters? So let's take this step one step further. Think of one thing that often ends up as urgent, something that always feels like last minute or reactive. I have some of those. Maybe I'm unique. I don't know. So what would it look like to move that into the more proactive space? Maybe by planning ahead, delegating, or simply blocking time for it earlier. So take a couple of minutes to write it down. You don't need to share it, it's just for you. So what's one activity or responsibility you often find in urgent mode that you like to move into a more proactive, calm space? And also what would need to change for that to happen? So great. So I want to share something that I have noticed in my own work. So when I manage to actually spend scheduled time for what Cowie calls quadrant 2, the important but not urgent, everything changes. It's when I plan ahead, when I work on what really matters, that's when I feel the flow. Suddenly, all the urgent stuff in quadrant 1, like invoices, reports, or mail, or it doesn't take that much time anymore. It's like magic. So when I get it right, I am more productive than ever. And honestly, I could probably work like 6 hours a day instead of doing a normal 8-10 hour a day. And science also supports that. So science is looking and have been researching about the feeling of flow. So when we spend time on what's truly important, the work that has meaning and direction, also the brain changes how it operates. The part of the brain that normally worries about time, pressure, self-criticism slows down. And at the same time, the systems that gives us focus, creativity, and motivation switch on. Researchers have found that when people are in this state of deep focus, they can be up to 5 times more productive. And they feel calmer and more energized afterwards. So when we make space for what matters, the rest often takes care of itself. So that's why Cowie's quadrant 2, or his quadrant, isn't just about time, it's really about energy and impact. So how do you actually protect the quadrant 2 time in your real life, in your job, when your phone is buzzing and everything feels urgent? And one simple tool I use, and many leaders, maybe some of you also use, is called the Pomodoro method, the Pomodoro technique. Have you heard about that? Hands up. One. Yeah. So it's incredibly basic, and which is why it works. You choose one important task, something that belongs in quadrant 2, and you set a timer for 25 minutes. And during that time, and this is really hard, no emails, no notifications, no multitasking. Just one focused thing. And when the timer rings after 25 minutes, take a short 5-minute break. Dance, maybe. Move your body. Just leave it. Go from the computer. Just leave it. Then you can start another round if you want. And you could also, since it is really hard to leave the phone, the notifications, the emails, start with just 15 minutes in the beginning. And I would say that most people find that after 2 or 3 rounds, barely an hour, they have made more real progress than in an entire day of reacting to everything. So it's not about time pressure, it's about creating small pockets of protected focus. And it's one of the easiest ways to bring quadrant 2 to life. So let's make this a bit more concrete. Think about something that truly matters in your work. Something that moves you or your cinema forward, but that often gets pushed aside because of all the urgent things. I have lots of them. What is one activity or task you could give 25 minutes of protected focus times next week? So write it here in Menti. It's anonymous. It can be a small or big, and no one, I will not see it.